biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. The boys are back. We have a brand spanking new program. Talk a little bit about the Mayhem Classic. And then if we have time for some CrossFit HQ online semifinals drama, why not dig into that? Have a little bit of fun with it. What do we got going on here? All right, I'm off my rhythm. It's obviously been a little while since we've talked to you guys. Before we get into live chat, programming schedule, the Misfit affiliate Cortez phase starts Monday, May 12th. This is kind of the official start to the 2025-2026 program, where we get into some of the certain biases, and I'll give a little teaser before the Misfit affiliate programming episode comes out. But there's a little bit of running in there, so you can see if you can figure out what Cortez means, and we'll drop that in that podcast. Also, Misfit Athletics Offseason Block 2 starts Monday, May 26th. Same thing. We'll get into a full episode on that, talk about sort of the transition from Offseason Block 1 to Offseason Block 2. And then if anybody's going to be a new subscriber, how to attack that, how to choose the strength or the conditioning bias track. Life chat. Gentlemen, it's been a while. What's going on?
It's been a minute. In the long hiatus that we've had, Rory McIlroy completed his Grand Slam. It was a monumental Sunday for golf watchers.
Oh my goodness.
And I would say too, like any non-golf, any casual sports fan who paid
the Masters are big enough for that.
Any concept of how important that was I've told a couple people, I think that was probably, like, independent of like coaching and work related stuff, probably the most invested in a sporting event I've found myself. Certainly in like the last decade, like.
Sure. And one thing that's interesting about that is the coaching and the competing in the world that you live in enhances the viewership of that. Because I'm not a golfer. I don't really watch golf, but just the idea of someone being as good as he is at something and then having to overcome narratives and all of that, it's fascinating.
Yeah. So that was very exciting. In the live chat, I am, in fact, no closer to the Masters than I was 4 weeks ago when the Masters occurred. So for anybody wondering about my journey and my Grand Slam hopes, I'd say the statistical probability has not increased in the
but
last
can we
couple
get
weeks,
can
so.
we get like a main senior tournament like Grand Slam? Can we come up with one?
Yeah, I think
You
we
know
could
what I mean?
probably
Like you win the fucking Nonesuch Classic.
TPC Nonesuch Classic, hosted a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. It's only 9 holes, and there's 2 people competing. So,
fuck yeah.
I think we could find a local Grand Slam to create and for me to win as the only competitor. But
explain to the layperson how Rory can make the shots that he makes and miss the shots that he misses. They don't really go together. It's fucking wild. Some of those shots he made were like, you know, I don't know the history of golf, but like some of the best shots that I've ever seen in a pressure situation reminded me a lot of some of the shit that Tiger used to do, where you're just like, what the fuck is happening? And then he's like, I've heard like the thing of like good Rory and bad Rory being on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And like him trying to fight that and his caddy trying to help him out and everything. And it's just every once in a while, it's like, this is too easy. Let me miss this putt.
I think my best, I feel like my best comparison is almost like an early days Matt Frazier, who could absolutely annihilate the field by minutes or by dozens of pounds in a given lift, and then somehow in another event drop an absolute egg. And I guess that would probably be my closest for the listener to describe that, like a tremendous level of talent, and just like not being able to put things. It's even tough because like Frazier's was more just like, I don't know how to do CrossFit, but I'm an
Yeah,
elite
Rory knows how
athlete.
to golf.
Rory knows how to golf. But he spent a lot of time, and I think this is like relevant for any athlete, but he spent a ton of time in the off season, one, like kind of working his weaknesses. So one of the things that he worked a ton on is his wedges, his wedge play, and the ability to
You can fucking tell.
use different trajectories. Like for non-golfers, you want to be able to hit kind of like what you would call windows. So if you had like 9 windows, imagine kind of like a tic-tac-toe board in the sky, being able to hit a ball that goes in those 9 kind of windows, or those 9 squares on the tic-tac-toe board. That's kind of like you'll hear professional golfers talk about the windows, and that's something that he worked on. But I think he also got, from what I heard, a good bit of guidance from Bob Rotella, who's a pretty well-known sports psychologist who's worked with a ton of athletes from different sports, like talking Michael Jordan, like a super high-profile guy. Because I think that was part of it, and he's also just having the expectations that he had for the last decade, essentially. Like that just compounds every year, so you can pretty easily understand why somebody with that much talent and that many expectations, winning 4 majors as a super young athlete and then going 10 years without winning one, starts to make everybody, including himself, question if he can actually do that. So it was pretty fun to watch. I watched kind of from a coaching perspective, like over on Sunday. I think that like his body language was pretty impressive. Like at no point did it change drastically from one, from a really tough start on literally the first hole. Like it didn't really change, and all the way to the point where he had to make some absolutely wild clutch plays. He slung a 7-iron 200 yards around a fucking tree. But then he misses a 120.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking
with a
about.
125-yard wedge. So he had to earn it for sure. But I think anybody who's trained or competed in something and had to earn every bit of a victory or a kind of a mission accomplished thing knows that it's worth it. So it was really cool to watch like all those things come together for an elite athlete on the stage that was.
It gives us so much. Like we could definitely do a full episode on this. Like the narratives of, like, you think about it from a CrossFit perspective, it's complicated. It's complicated to be in the spotlight at all times and having other people tell you how good you are or how good the training program you are or is that you're on, and all of these different things. And then throughout the weekend, what are you consuming? Who's speaking to you? What are the things that are happening? What voice in your head is taking over? Like one of the stories that I heard is his caddy going into the playoff was like, if I told you Monday that we would be going into the playoff, you would have been so happy.
Right. Sure.
Like what are we doing? You know what I mean? And these narratives, and I can't fathom what it's like to experience the level of other people fucking like chirping at him for as long as they have. One of 5 people ever in a cajillion-year-old sport to do what he's done, right?
Yep.
Like
6.
So absurd. 6.
Well, 6 now.
And like 6 now. And it's just like even as coaches, you like we'll buy into a narrative like that. When it's not something that we have the context for. When we have the context, it becomes our job to say those kinds of things. And luckily, the caddy is like, I find that to be fascinating too. The whole caddy game is wild.
Yeah.
Like listening to the players. There's a sports podcast that I listen to that has a decent amount of golfers on it, and like a lot of the conversations that they have are about the caddies. And like, being the thermostat and all that, like that's such a huge part of it. So I just am endlessly fascinated with stuff like that because I should know better. But then there's like a part of me that thinks it's hilarious that he kept sabotaging himself.
Oh,
like there's
God.
just that little part of me. But then like him falling to his knees and having that reaction is
man.
like you and I have experienced similar feelings. I'm sure there's a heightened thing when it's on that level of like a scale, but it's just like
sure.
you understand where that release would come from.
Oh
The
yeah.
amount of work, the amount of pressure. Like he's talking about, like he's just trying to make it through an episode of Bridgerton before he falls asleep at night. Like,
Yeah.
like
No,
it just cracks me up.
the narrative on his, entire career changes there. It's no longer like, exceptional start to the career and then a whole lot of close calls. It's now exceptional start to the career, a whole lot of outstanding finishes and top performances in, massive tournaments, and, career Grand Slam just happened to be a decade later. It's a
Right.
complete narrative switch for him. So I'm really curious to see how he plays moving
Yeah,
forward.
is this unburdened? Like, do we get to see unburdened Rory now?
I'm really hoping so. I'd love to see him just absolute, now that he's, the first thing he asked in his press conference was, "What are you going to talk about for the next year?" to the media, basically. Like, yeah, you don't, like, nobody can say shit
Scotty
to me
can't win the
anymore.
Masters.
Yeah, Scotty.
That's
Yeah,
the new
apparently
narrative.
not, I guess. But yeah, I'm really hopeful that, like, all of a sudden he's just going to prove to be the, one of the top 2 best players on the planet and just go on an
Yeah.
absolute. He's already kind of, like, the first half of his season has started like that with the wins that he's chalked up. So the stage is definitely set for a Scotty Scheffler like year for Rory McIlroy. But it'll be cool to see.
The one thing that I'll say that is funny is, and I hope the people listening to this love this part of the podcast, but what doesn't bode well for Rory is Scotty looked like shit and came in 4th. Like, watching him, he looked bad, and that was better than basically everyone in the world, which is like, he just kept like, and you could see his body language, and it wasn't defeatist. It was basically, I'm better than this. Like, that's what I saw on him when he'd miss a putt that he shouldn't miss, or like, I don't know, some of the stuff with golf is just like the ball hits the green and then does some wacky shit, and you're like, is that really your fault?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. But I found that to be like that was the narratives. Like, Scotty wasn't even in play. Scotty wasn't a big deal. Scotty came in 4th at the Masters, which is kind of a big deal.
He did that this last weekend too. He's just constantly trolling around in the top 5. Like, I had a bad weekend, I'm in the top 5.
Yeah.
It's like so
I don't even know where to go with my live chat, to be honest. Seb and I were at Mayhem. Then I got a wisdom tooth yanked out, which, I don't know, it was a bit of like a slow burn. Like, it wasn't that bad, but it's kind of annoying to have your mouth hurt for like a week and a half. Like, I didn't have any bouts of like intense pain. Like, if I was a moron and like chewed on that side, it was a problem. So I guess that was fine.
were you relegated to sip and slim fast, or what? Chew.
I could eat. I definitely understand if someone got all 4, if it felt like that in 4 places in my face, that'd be a problem. Because like, if you don't take a bunch of anti-inflammatories, it like makes its way out in every direction. So like, you have a headache on like the side of your head and all that jazz. So I can understand why, but because it was just like localized, I could shove food to the other side, but nothing where there was like any amount of getting your jaw involved. Like, if I had to like crunch, if I was eating like a steak, I actually did have a steak on vacation, and it was a little too soon. Like, it's just a little too soon. So yeah, that wasn't really that big of a deal, but then like a week later, I was like, this is kind of annoying. Like, I've had enough. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm standing up right now. I'm in one of my spots right now where if I sit for more than 20 minutes, my back just fucking locks up, and I got to go like take a walk, or I got to go get on a fan bike and spin for a little bit to get the spasms to stop. So I'm guessing the same discs just keep kind of popping their head out a little bit. A huge pain in the ass. So I'm fucking like getting into split stance here, standing on one foot, standing on the other, kind of moving around. So back's a little bit of an issue. I have the rite of passage now of traveling with a sick toddler on an airplane. That was
Congratulations.
that was
Unlocked.
something.
Badger.
Yeah, achievement unlocked for sure. That was something. The real crescendo at the end, his encore, is he puked all over Maya as the plane was landing in Miami.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. That's good stuff, Carter.
Yeah.
The crescendo.
Yeah. The cherry on top was just bleh. And I don't even think he puked because he was sick, because he just had kind of like a common cold, but you could tell his ears were like really hurting. And basically we were just passing him back and forth because he was screaming. And I told Hunter this yesterday, but Seb, the woman in front of me was recording him like crying with just her face on the camera and trying to get like free miles and shit from Delta. It's like, at Delta, you better blah, blah, blah. Like, this crying ass baby has been crying the whole flight. Like, I was just like, what the fuck?
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
people are so obnoxious.
the nerve.
But the funny thing is I was like, at that, once I saw it, I was kind of spying on her. A lot of drama in this woman's life. A lot of drama. Yeah, she was cooking on all fronts.
Was
Yeah.
she the one that has like the size 32 font on her phone so everybody could read it on the plane?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that happens often.
Yep. And it's funny because people will turn on you on a plane. They'll be like, he's so cute. Oh, is he okay? And then, like, I've had enough of this fucking kid.
I don't know, dude. It's part of life. Like, kids are going to be kids. You just got to roll with the punches. It's never... I don't know.
What are you
man.
doing on an airplane without headphones?
That's 100% true.
What's going
what's
on
wrong
here?
with
What are you
you?
doing yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you get a different, like, I'm sure at some point when I was really young, if I like sat next to a crying baby, I was probably personally a baby about it. You get a different, once you're a parent, you get a different, like, you feel bad because it's like not fun. But I will say, one travel day, no bueno. First day there, so. And then after that, the kid got to go to the beach and the pool every day, and he was as happy as can be. So we'll take it. And then the ride back, we had the usual bullshit. They got us a new airplane because ours was broken. And it's funny because it was like immediate. It was too good to be true. It was like, maintenance issue. We're going to send you down to this other gate and you're good to go. Plane's already there. We're done. We get on the plane. They're like, this plane was supposed to go to Chicago. It has too much fuel on it. We need to remove 3,000 gallons or pounds or something of fuel. And I was like, why? Like, it probably costs more to fly with a heavier plane, takes more fuel if you have more fuel, kind of a thing. But like, so
Might
what?
Literally be a cap on the weight of the plane in the air.
So,
Christ.
yeah. So they bring the fuel truck over and the monitor's broken, and then they bring the maintenance people over, and it turns out there's like a union fight going on. There's like certain members of this are trying to unionize. So we sat on the plane for 2 hours, which was supposed to be a 50-minute flight from LaGuardia to Portland. And by the time we got him on and off the plane and we had skipped nap time, that flight was like so, I'd say middle of the road, but understandable. He's basically just voicing everyone's inner thoughts at that point.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's my life chat. I don't know if there's anything ultra specific there, but I'm back. Even though my back hurts and my tooth hurts, I am invigorated, ready to rock. I've got 2 shout outs that I wanted to do before we get into some of the topics of the episode. The first one is a shout out and like a bit of a plea. So the Masters community on Discord during semifinals was awesome. Like, one of the better times on Discord to see people. They were sharing strategies and talking through the workouts, what order they were going to do. You know, we did the stage thing, which is basically just like a live video where I talk to people about the strategy of the workouts. And that is part of the power of how this program could work even better for you. And there's like sort of just a nod to everyone, and then a masters community as well, of like trying to stay involved on a more regular basis. And I sort of thought about this a little bit more because a higher level athlete was talking to us about following our programming. And one of the things that I was pitching as an advantage that I think is important is having crossover with other athletes within the program. So there's like a narrative that's out there of like, your program needs to be like absolutely 100% custom for you, or it's not what you want. And I believe that putting athletes on an island doing their own programming and not crossing over with, you know, a Metcon, an interval, a bitchwork piece, whatever, with other people, you end up losing some of that magic, and over a longer trajectory are going to be less successful. So basically, masters community, keep in touch with each other, like continue to do that. I think that's really great. And it was really fun to see that happen. And then everybody else is the same kind of thing. Like, I've been using the DM feature on Fitter just to let people know. It's like extra nudge to get them to go onto Discord to ask some of their questions there. You will do better on the program if you get involved with the community. And that side of things is completely free. Like, you go there, you have the conversations. So yeah, stay involved. I think you'll be fitter for sure.
Yeah, I'll just tack onto that briefly with the shout out. And all applies to masters athletes, but all three of my semifinals masters athletes had a really outstanding weekend. Tony and Kelly, who've been with me for a handful of years now. Tony, had a handful of highlights, including snatching 215 5 more times than he ever did in his entire life. And he just spent that was the one small thing, but the larger kind of overall review of the entire weekend for him was that we worked on specific things, and those things got better, and he did well at semifinals because of that. He spent a shitload of time and effort with things like taking notes during like training, like much more deliberate with kind of like a journal type, recording athlete notes type stuff. So there was just a much more kind of focused effort. There wasn't more training per se, but much more focused than in previous years. And that paid off in spades for him this whole year. And then Kelly, who's like had ups and downs both in and out of the gym. I feel like we've had this conversation multiple times over the last couple of years with Kelly, who feels like she's not prepared for the next level of competition, and then promptly sneaks comfortably into that top 30 women who are, just pending.
It's what we call a gamer.
Absolutely. And she proved that she was that all weekend with a whole lot of other shit going on. And then Justin LaSala just being Justin LaSala, doing his usual thing, just snagging a top 10 at semifinals. Not all that worried about it, getting ready to roll for the game. So really good showing for, like you said, our masters athletes, but needed to give a bit of a shout out to those guys for a hell of a performance the other weekend.
For sure. So one conversation that I have with a lot of athletes that have big aspirations is this idea of, are you willing to do whatever it takes? And an athlete believing that they understand the context of that question, and then realizing whatever it takes might not look exactly like what you think it does. And whatever it takes related to Tony was a great segue, was his athlete IQ and taking those notes and having a deeper understanding of the sport that he's playing, right?
Yeah.
So Hunter's talking about these 9 windows, like the equivalent of that into CrossFit are all of the intricacies of how movements interact with one another, how energy systems work, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what can you ask of yourself at competition time compared to training time, all those different things. And whatever it takes. Yeah, I'm willing, coach, I'm going to run through a brick wall. Actually, no, get a fucking pen and a notebook. What?
Yeah.
And then we got yesterday.
I'm a couch stretch guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge one for so many people. They're like, well, I kind of would prefer to bench press versus couch stretch. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it takes probably isn't what you think it is.
For macaroni and
So,
cheese. But
so yesterday on Instagram, a really good representation of this, something that I put into the programming notes, and I always wonder if it disappears into the ether or if people pay close attention to it. Bailey Thomas posted on Instagram a story about her handstand holds. And I don't know if you want to pull that up for us, Seb, just the picture that I sent over. Basically, like the idea of I'm trying to get better. Maybe there's some issues with, pressing endurance. I'm not going to be able to. Oh, there we go. All right. So the first time that she did the 5-minute handstand hold, it took her 9 minutes and can barely hold for a minute at a time. And she just got it done a handful of weeks later in 6 minutes and 15 seconds, 2 minutes and 15 seconds, 1:30, and 1:15. Those are her 3 windows there. And again, like you see something like that on Instagram and you might not think much of it, right? Because it's not like a 10-pound snatch PR. It's not, 20 seconds off your mile time, whatever it is. It's one of those things that pays dividends over a long period of time that you have to look at as, the same sort of, one foot in front of the other, delayed gratification, linear progression type stuff. And those are the kinds of things that I want to see people post about so that we can shout it out. Because it's not always just, are you willing to do extra volume? Are you willing to grind through a shitty, volume squat set or push hard in your last few rounds of your interval, that sort of thing.
yeah, that's awesome. One of those like low hanging fruit things that people would just rather like. Why not just do the competitor extra in class instead of sit in the bottom of a squat or kick up into a handstand and stuff like that? So good.
Uh-huh. Yep, absolutely. All right. So today is Tuesday, April 22nd. We had a brand new program launch Monday, April 21st, our GPP program, something that the likes of CrossFit people on Reddit have been asking us for like a decade. We've had hatchet modifications and garage crew and anywhere during, lockdowns and all of that. But those were modifications of something intended for a competitor every single time. And our affiliate program is intended to be a class and based on equipment and based on exactly an hour of time and all of these different factors that we have to put into place, things like, staggering and, can you go from this to this, and you got to herd cats and all of that stuff. So it was a long time coming to have our GPP program, which doesn't really matter what it means. It stands for General Physical Preparedness. I wanted to keep it because I think if the people that are on the program listen to the podcast, it'll resonate with who we are as coaches, get a little bit of buy-in sort of into the nerdy side, and the fact that we are trying to synthesize down some bigger concepts within strength and conditioning and health and wellness into a program. So it is live now. Go to the link in bio, Misfit Athletics on Instagram. It is our most affordable option that we have on there. It's $29 a month. And before we talk about the specifics of the program, I do want to address something that I've struggled with my training that will be imperative for people to wrap their minds around going into this program. And that is reframing the competitor mindset to a mindset of our goals within the GPP program, which is to make you stronger, fitter, and healthier. And, Hunter, you talk about the long trajectory to a distant horizon. Did I make that up? Is that right? Low trajectory. Yes. Yeah. And this concept is powerful and life-changing and not the same as like, can I stick out a phase and be ready for this competition or that competition? It's just showing up on average 4.5 days a week for like a really long time. That sort of thing. So just really buying into, and again, like if you're the type of person that has 90 minutes to 2 hours, you spread out your warm up, you spread out your cool down, you think about the mobility stuff, that sort of thing. Executing the program on a daily basis should take you, like, on average, I would say a little bit over an hour. Some of the days we did a 2-week test group, and there were days where people were done in 50 minutes and there were days where people were pushing an hour and a half. But we also know, left to their own devices, people will take different routes to get to the same place, for better or worse. Sometimes they're just getting after it way too quick, and other times you watch them stretch for like 6.5 hours and wonder what they're doing. So there's obviously a bit of kind of, there's a bit of play in there.
I do my crossover symmetry 14 times before I start
right.
now.
Yeah. Fuck. So yeah, it's easier said than done, but I just want to put it out there. Really try on a weekly basis to think about it from the perspective of like, what are your goals that are not specifically related to like, what's my Fran time? Like, how well am I going to do in the open, that sort of thing, and your general fitness. And I don't know if you have, obviously on the affiliate side, you have to have these conversations, Hunter. I don't know if you have any advice for thinking about it from that perspective, but it's important.
Yeah, I think that, like, I don't know that I would have as advice as much as, actually, let me do this. Can I ask you a couple questions about the program?
Yeah, of course.
I'm looking at a spreadsheet, and so what I'm seeing is, and you can kind of jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but this will be a little bit of a preview for listeners. I'm seeing a daily warm-up that is pretty specific to what you're doing. It's not a warm-up protocol that Misfits might be used to seeing as far as like high, medium, low intensity. It's an actual written warm-up. You're then going to see either a lift, what looks like a lift, and potentially a conditioning piece. Some days we can talk. I have questions on Meathead Monday, which is a unique feature of the program. But basically 1 or 2 training pieces per day, either a lift, conditioning, extra credit, which appears to be kind of a skill-based type thing, and then also a structured cool down, which is a good feature, and I think that's important to the kind of that low trajectory to a distant horizon kind of mentality. My question for you is like, who is this for? Like, it's a GPP program. I think both of us could make the argument that it's for everyone. I tend to think to myself like, well, if it's for everyone, it's for no one. Like, there's got to be a specific group of people in mind, or just maybe a specific person who wants to approach their training with in a certain manner.
I think most of the people following this program will either have time constraints or different priorities. You know what I mean? Like, those are the two things that come to mind the most for me. So when Seb and I were talking about it, just to sort of put the word out about it, a lot of the things that we talked about were former competitors. So those are a lot of the people that were on Reddit that were like, hey, I'm kind of done with that part of my life, but I enjoy Misfit and the content. Like, so what now? So former competitors are definitely on that list. Just the kind of like we always want to push people to affiliates, like right. For better or worse, in terms of how many subscriptions we get. Like, a lot of our advice is, hey, go do this and be part of this community. But the other side of it is, if you can't, we do have a program for you, and we have an online community. Yeah. So that would be your like fitness enthusiast, basically. Yeah. And then, the time constraint thing is huge. Like, students, parents, small business owners, busy professionals, like those things, trying to jam the square peg into the round hole. Like, the high highs and the low lows throughout the year are brutal. And I don't want to remove competitive aspirations from those people. But if you do make it to the other side of the fence, this program, and I'll get into how I write some of the workouts, but like, there's a lot of percentage work. There's a lot of AMRAPs. There are a lot of like run this far in this amount of time or row. So what you execute and then what someone on a different side of the spectrum from you executes can be entirely different. And that's almost like personalizing. So we have tricks as coaches and as programmers to make that happen. We've had to do it at the affiliate level forever, but then if we're on the fence about something, you know, when it comes to a competitive program, it's like, I mean, we could just make it an AMRAP, right? Like we're a little bit worried about this, that sort of thing. So we get to use those tools within this program.
So something that I'm looking at, I kind of scrolled through entire block one. One thing that kind of stood out to me, and I suspect I have an answer, but I'll hear yours, is that the highest skill elements that I see in here are pull-ups, toes to bar, and wall walks. There's a healthy dose of strict pull-ups in the extra credit work, which is obviously great. But someone who is maybe coming from the Misfit Athletics ecosystem or a competitive CrossFit mindset, it's like, am I going to see those high skills at some point, or has the kind of movement tracker, so to speak, shrunk down a little bit to kind of like, hey, we got fewer movements, all of which move the knee? Because like my argument for, having a high skill element in every single affiliate class is a recipe for injuries, for people just not seeing progress in their fitness because they oftentimes just get slowed down by those skill components. And there's a line for every type of athlete as far as what is too high skill to be appropriate in a conditioning piece. So I'm curious if that's just a coincidence that I'm looking at just a single training block, or is that pretty intentional?
It's very intentional. And part of the inspiration is the challenge that we've had to write that community competition once a year, where it's like, you think I can't fucking bury you without skills, like, or heavy weights, like that kind of thing.
75-pound barbell, hold my fit aid.
In first place and 19th place, let's look at their heart rate data. Let's look at, what this did for them, what the stimulus was. Kind of fantastic all around, getting something very similar out of it. But the actual output, I think, lines up with where you're at in your fitness. Whereas when you're a competitor, we're like, you need to get to this output, right? Yeah. So like if you're doing the wrong program and it is an AMRAP and you get 1 round and someone else gets 7, like, holy shit, like you're not going to, but that's not, the context is just so much different here. And then if I'm going to put the word healthy up on the screen and say it over and over and talk about it in terms of how to be healthy, chest to bar butterfly pull-ups. A lot of people are a little too narrow and they're taking a microscopic thread off their labrum every time they, make themselves go around the wheel there.
Yeah.
What's up, Seb? Oh, that's you. Gotcha. Yeah. Got it.
I mean, as somebody who has a surgically repaired shoulder, like that,
right?
I can't prove that that's the case, but like, might be.
Yeah. And well, it's easier to grip a pull-up bar with your hands closer together. So some people prefer to just deal with a longer range of motion because they have the grip strength, because they do use their hips. And the funny thing about this is not like I am a Kool-Aid drinker. But there are elements to the sport side of things that were never intended. You know what I mean? The volume of pulling gymnastics, that sort of thing, were never intended to be part of, like, again, let's make someone fitter, stronger, and healthier. So that's where my mind goes with a lot of that. If we do see anything like that in the program, it's not like it's a never say never situation. It would probably be extremely low rep. And then my mind would go to, well, why aren't we then just doing more chin over bar pull-ups or strict pull-ups or that sort of thing? So the movement tracker shrinks down. And one of the reasons why I like that is because it develops a level of linear progression of like, I'm going to run, row, bike, and burpee very regularly. It is so awesome to be good at those 4 things.
Yeah.
I'm going to push and pull, and I'm going to get my shoulder going overhead. I'm going to get the bench press and the push up. I am going to, pull from the floor. Like there are all these different elements of, so I like when things shrink down like that and people can really see their progress, that sort of thing. Now, what's good is the way that we program and the way that we systemize the programming. The combinations will feel like not endless, but they'll feel like you're not doing the same thing over and over.
Sure.
That sort of deal. So yes, that's definitely very intentional. And honestly, I don't even think about a lot of it from a skill perspective as much as I do like the wall walk thing. I think is great for range of motion, and I think handstands are really important. You think about like how hard it is for people to, when they get older, to stand up off a couch, that sort of thing, and the issues with blood pressure, like getting inverted, I think is really important. And we have scales in there that sort of tell you, hey, like do 2 or 3 steps and then mark your line if you can't do this volume, that sort of thing. And that's honestly how a lot of the scaling goes in there. So like we had a Metcon today that had, I think, 115/75 power cleans. And it just sort of says below, like, if this is what we intended and if this sounds unrealistic, just drop the weight. Like, it's the same workout. Like, you get more rounds, you're going to get fitter. Like, we're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've actually thought a lot about, and this is a little bit personal too, because there's a non-zero chance that I re-injured my surgically repaired shoulder doing like what ended up being bar muscle ups at the time. I don't know if that's actually the case or if I just need to PT myself back to health, but my thought was like, well, I'm pretty qualified in the sense of doing high skill gymnastics with the kind of intended stimulus and doing them safely. Like I have strict pulling and pushing strength and, would check all of the boxes that are necessary to say like, yeah, if you can get yourself up and over the bar, like let's do it. And, and I randomly kind of get injured on a day and think to myself, like, do I need to be able to do 10 bar muscle ups? I need to have the physical capacity to do 3 sets of 10 bar muscle ups? And it's like, and then you get down the rabbit hole of like, well, like, no, like, is there a situation in life where I need to string together 10 unbroken bar muscle ups to save my life? Like, no, like, I don't think anybody would argue that. The Hunter CrossFit, L1 guy, methodology guy says no, but if you can do 10 bar muscle ups now, then maybe when you're 60, you can do 5 bar muscle ups. And like a 60-year-old who can do 5 bar muscle ups, like that's a pretty fit dude. The question then becomes like, well, is it necessary and appropriate for like to suggest to the masses to do that? And like, again, I'm pretty intentional with how I move. How many other people who come to a gym are the same way? Or is it more just like, I see the shiny thing, I'm going to do everything I can to get it. And it's like, that's fantastic. I'm glad that you acquired this skill, but also, you did just take off, but that potential shoulder replacement that was coming at age 70 is actually now here at 60. Sure. And it's the hard part is you can't know the answer to those things. You can't know something that you did 5 years ago is actually just, the chickens are coming home to roost today. We had a member who blew out his knee the other day, like a couple of weeks ago doing some heavy squat cleans, and it, like, the long and the short was that his surgeon was like, it was going to happen eventually. Today was just the day. This is when the stars align. You had microscopic injuries due to whether it was CrossFit or completely unrelated things. But the chickens came home to roost on this day. And then you start to think about how athletes move in classes or as, quote, competitors who are not under the watchful eyes of a coach. And you're just looking at them being like, the only reason you're doing kipping pull-ups right now is because that kind of became a thing as part of the sport, and it's kind of the standard now. The question is this necessary for your longevity? Like, is the risk worth the reward? Whereas 6x10 strict pull-up, in the extra credit of the GPP program, man,
That's what we're chasing, man. I want
I'll put
every
my eggs
single
in that basket a
person,
little bit more.
even if you literally do 6 rounds, round 1, you do 1 strict pull up, and then you go to the band. If in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, like you can do 6x10 or your version of that, like what you've done to change the landscape of your health is absolutely absurd. So, I mean, you're kind of saying all of the things that I'm thinking putting into this program. Like they're pretty spot on. And it's complicated for you in your situation, especially because one of the reasons why you get so much buy-in is because you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk.
Right.
A head coach who goes out there and does the thing gets significantly more buy-in from the members and from the rest of his staff. So like there are elements to this, but also like, you know, is there a gray area? Like we're getting off topic, but like the next time there's 3 rounds of 10, do you just do 3 or 4 sets?
Yeah, well,
You know what I mean?
it's forced me. It's like, well, I gotta go warm up. I'm gonna go warm up and do some rope climbs and kettlebell snatches, and I gotta test the waters to make sure that nothing's gonna like re-injure itself. And now, it's my competitive days are long gone. There's an element of me that's like, well, if I'm putting kipping pull-ups or bar muscle-ups on the whiteboard, like I can't not do this. I can't not. I can scale. I can say like, hey, I've got an injury that I'm working around, but I'm trying to get back to where I was at. But I can't say in good faith that like, oh, I just don't do muscle-ups anymore. I think you should, but I don't. But I'm not going to. And like, respectfully to the members, like I'm more qualified than you are to know what's best for you in that regard. Like I know you want to get your muscle ups. But the fact that you are slinging yourself over a pull-up bar, chicken winging half of your reps is like, again, like I tell members, it's like, hey man, you're not hurt today, but like the chickens will come home to roost. And whether it's in a year or 2 years and it's a catastrophic injury, or it's something that's like hey man, like I saw this coming a long ways away. Like we talked about it, you chose not to do anything about it, and like, not to tell you I told you so, but I fucking told you so.
Right.
So it's a weird gray area, because I could make a 20-minute diatribe of why kipping pull-ups are outstanding and like why you should take the time to practice them and learn them. But I could make the argument in either direction too. So I think it's not to get super far off topic here, but I think that's I think that'll be a positive feature of the program for people who are willing to kind of stow that, post at, I was once a competitive CrossFitter. It's like, what does that even mean? Like what do you mean you were a competitive like you used to do workouts that had muscle ups and now you don't? Like, does that change anything about your life and your reality? Or so.
And I want people to have a remarkable engine for themselves, for their personal situation, and to be very strong for themselves and their personal situation.
Yeah.
And those two things are achievable through, they're not even scaled versions, honestly. I mean, a strict pull-up is very high level.
AMRAP 14 minutes, 16 power cleans, a 300-meter run, 16 burpees. Like, get fucked. Like, that's gonna be fucking miserable. Like all of these work, like all the Metcons are still like,
exactly. Yes.
They're Metcons for sure.
If you know, it's one of those situations. Yeah.
All right. Can you I don't know if you want to even continue on because we got some other topics, but can you touch on Meathead Monday? That was a well-received thing in the test group. Meathead Mondays are a thing. Looks like
so. There's to explain exactly what it is. Actually, do you want to read one of them? You want to tell me?
I'll read Meathead Monday 1. This was. You want me to read one, or you want me to read an upcoming one? I'll read the first one.
Any.
I don't know when this podcast. All right. Meathead Monday number 1. Every 4 minutes for 16 minutes. So that's 4 sets, 4 heavy front squats, zone 2 bike or walk in the remaining time. after you finish, at presumably at the 16-minute mark, you'll continue on here directly into every 3 minutes for 18 minutes or 6 sets, 10 front rack walking lunge. Bless me. 10 front rack walking lunge steps, zone 2 biker walk in the remaining time, and then finally that kind of 18-minute clock goes directly into every 4 minutes for 20 minutes, 5 sets. 15 sumo stance back squats, zone 2 walk in the remaining time. So the way that I read this is like we go from kind of the heavy stimulus, almost like this is like a heavy, and then building to almost accessory stuff within just one continuous clock, which is pretty convenient for an athlete from a timing perspective, but go on.
So basically you are getting in an entire lifting session, main lift, primary accessory, secondary accessory, and an elevated heart rate for basically an hour. And there's a note in there where you basically manipulate the session to meet your goals by either going heavy in all of those things, and that's relative. 75 sumo stance back squats, you load that baby up, you're not doing the rest of the week. And those instructions are also in there.
Yeah, I was going to say there are instructions with a couple percentages, some guidance, but I saw that. I was like 75, like that's going to be a fucking session. You do lunges and then those sumo squats, like
according to the bodybuilding community, that is the GOAT movement for the cheeks. The sumo stance back squat.
Check it out. So sumo deadlifts are right up there too.
But again, it's an accessory movement, so keep that in mind. Doing it with an empty bar would be totally fine. So you're getting that full session in, and you're asking yourself, right now, in terms of how fit I am and how strong I am, which is the one that needs to be manipulated a little bit more. So if we're lifting a little bit heavier, then we're probably going to stay closer to that zone 1. But the funny part about that is lifting heavier is going to make your heart rate go higher. So it's almost going to take care of itself. But you're going to stay, much more deliberate on the bike or the walk. If you are in a more conditioning bias phase, bit more of an actual meathead, you're in trying to get into a calorie deficit, or you just know that your lifts are fine and that you got to get your conditioning up. We back the weight off and we actually stay up into that, middle to high end zone 2. And there are instructions of how to accomplish that in the program. And for me, the reason I started doing it is because I felt like those lifting sessions, they felt like a waste. Like as someone who's time constrained, like I know how long you need to rest to get stronger. And I was a little bored. And then I also started doing some of the upper body stuff with the skier, on the one damper, and feeling like I could lift more weight by actually clearing out some of the waste there. So, a lot of the feedback was just like from both sides of the fence, you tricked me, like in a good way.
Yeah.
Like holy shit. Like I'm gassed at the end of this. Like that's the kind of session where you're going to burn 500 to 800 calories, which is a lot. Yeah. Like that's no joke doing that. So, and it also gives us an opportunity to I don't think well, actually, no, this isn't blasphemous to say if you actually follow the original way that CrossFit intended to program. I don't believe that you need to go put your head through a wall in a GPP program as often as most people would. I don't think the recovery is going to be there. Again, if you are super busy, if you have other priorities, you're not going to recover. It's not going to go that well. So this is the kind of session where there's kind of some built-in flushing and maintenance, and we're keeping the tissues warm. I think there's injury prevention and staying on a machine, while you're doing lifting and things of that nature. So, honestly, I just was going for a 2-for-1 and tinkered with it for a year and a half on my own end, and really found that it ended up being a really great workout, in that my HRV scores, even though I hit that many reps and got that much time on the machines, were actually a little bit better the next day because, it was sort of high intensity lift, low intensity on the machine, back and forth.
Do you have any advice for somebody just getting started with this? Because there is a small element of me that's I'm looking at that kind of individually. It's okay, 4x4 front squat. Yep, that's fine. 6x10 lunge. Okay, that's not so bad. 75 sumo. That's kind of a lot. It's like that now all of a sudden, but that's compounded. Like that will fuck me up for a good few days. I think I have the knowledge and experience to look at that and do the math and say to myself,
Right.
like I see what could happen here. And there's some other
Yeah.
days that are like that as well. Do you have any advice for somebody? Like, is there a progression to Meathead Monday? Is it just a kind of a rotating lifting cycle? There are other, also for the listener, like there are other days where you do have your traditional sort of lifting, your heavy
Yeah.
3s, 2s, 1s that don't have, specific zone 2 requirements. It's not like
Right. Yeah. So there's multiple upper body meathead Mondays, Olympic lifting meathead Mondays, and lower body meathead Mondays. So you'd be looking at like your primary lift on the lower body is probably going to be like front squat, back squat, deadlift. Different variations of clean and snatch, and then the different planes that we talked about within pressing on the upper body days. There is very much a like, you're going to notice the similarities as they rotate. So like 2 weeks from the first lower body Meathead Monday, you're going to get another one, and you're going to see some of the similarities there. You're going to have information on how to attack it based on the previous session, and then the ability to have some linear progression built into it. Because there's, on the snatch day, there's 5x15 overhead squats, which is a whole thing there. But again, I would be looking at, like, if I was doing this program, I would be understanding that even though I can lift the weight, that my actual fitness level isn't necessarily there. So I'm looking for my RPE to drop considerably over the course of that session. Like there's a really good chance the first week that I did a 5x15 of any squat variation or lunge or anything like that, we're talking empty bar, we're talking, 25, 35 pound dumbbells, something to that effect. Because if you can condition yourself to do the thing and give yourself a little bit of runway, then like 45 pounds turns into 50, turns into 55, turns into 60, and it becomes more and more appropriate for you to have a little bit of weight on there. And you'll actually be making it easier on your body at heavier weights. And that's just another part of having the right mindset going into this. I'm trying to be healthier. Like if I put 135 on this bar, I could probably get it done, and I'm going to be in deep shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say there's that kind of long-term mindset, longevity element to that for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any other questions, but that's the GPP program in a nutshell.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I think there's the. No, I don't think. Is there anything else you want to add to it? I think I could.
I don't think so. I mean, I have like a utopian dream of a group emerging in Discord that wants to have conversations about like, hey coach, can I have access to your macro calculator? And like, right. Talking about sleep practices, and just these conversations are so similar, but they're just a little bit of a shift from who we're normally talking to on this podcast. And it'll be our job to figure out how often we're bringing in different context, but I also don't want to confuse people. So I would love to talk to people about the other ways outside of the GPP program to be fitter, healthier, stronger. And, that's probably going to include, hitting your macros and drinking your water and stretching more than anything. But again, if people are, in it at like a team level, there's going to be more buy-in. People are going to be more interested in executing, going to be able to lean on one another.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question we'll get, but just knowing that we do get a question about like the cross-pollination of the various programs that we write. Is there overlap between this program and the other programs? Is there a scenario where somebody is doing the hatchet track, and is like, oh, I might do GPP also, or some days do GPP and some days do hatchet, or stuff like that? Like, it blow honest. Yeah, it just answer the quote before I get angry. I'm gonna get irate.
All right. We actually are getting this question already. And I think towards the end of May, don't quote me on this, bundles will be available on both Fitter and we're going to be launching on Strivey. How you use those, though, I think there should be a fucking bundles episode, because I understand the idea of I don't have time for Hatchet right now in this season of my life. I got this test coming up. I got this thing to do, and wanting to hop over and just follow GPP for a couple of weeks. There's one plea that we're going to make. Like, we know that there are large groups of people that follow under one subscription, and like, we're a really small business. And if you think that the content that we make is kind of worth it, and you like, what we do and want us to continue doing it, then a little nudge to get those people to sign up would be super helpful. So like, I hope people aren't just like, oh fuck, we got all of them now. Like, I'll write them up on the whiteboard, that sort of thing. But no, there's no crossover, and there shouldn't be. The only thing would be, like a challenge workout where it is something very straightforward, a 20-minute AMRAP that like a games athlete's going to hold 1600 calories per hour and you're going to hold 900. And like, it's just fun to have, body weight movements and rowing and a light barbell and see who can die more, that sort of thing. So if we did that down the road, that would be like kind of a one-off thing just for fun. Yeah. More than anything. And again, more to the whole team kind of buy-in idea. But no, this program is written entirely from scratch. And I know you and I have talked about it, Hunter. It's really fun for me to write this program because I'm not boxed in to like this wild matrix of connecting the dots and drawing the puzzle and going way down a road and realizing I have to turn around. Like, I can really like put the stuff in that I want because it's not running into conflict with so many other things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the constraints of writing programs for the masses can be really challenging. Even writing for affiliates, it's like, I don't know how big your gym is. I don't know how many athletes or equipment you have. It's so
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to move on to, we're about an hour in right now. I'll give you guys a little bit of bonus content for taking a couple weeks off, but we won't run it too long. Hunter, I want your opinion on the conversation of the Mayhem Classic programming, and I'm going to give you a couple of half opinions to kind of run with here. So the Mayhem Classic first workout had 120 feedbag squats, sandbag squats with the 100/70 pounds. Number 2 had anywhere from 10 to 30 squat snatches at 225/155.
Okay.
And then event 3 had 72 dumbbell thrusters with the 55/40s.
Yep.
So those are the first 3 events. We talk about it on here. I believe wholeheartedly in it. You need to be prepared for this as an athlete. You need to be prepared to execute on something like this, because maybe it's just because Mayhem can and will program it this way.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's because, again, you got to be ready for anything. And some years it's going to be this, and some years it's going to be something else. I won't condemn the programming until I see the programming a few times. Like, if they want to program it this way this year and be like, bet you weren't ready for that shit, then fine. If it's all squats next year, then like, what the fuck are we doing? The other part here is I didn't know this was a thing, and it actually makes sense to me, but like our athletes are getting pretty big in the sport. You know what I mean? They're 2-3 inches taller. They're like 20 or 30 pounds heavier. And the narrative of the rise of the machines apparently is a thing, kind of whispers from the old guard to the new guard of like, I'm the machine, quote unquote, as the CrossFitter, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like every semifinals has three workouts with the Echo bike, probably some rowing in it, like that sort of thing. So part of the, sort of narrative in the public right now is this might have been a little bit of a like Rich saying, I remember what it was like when I was out there. You know what I mean? Which I think is interesting. It's at least a fun thing to talk about. I don't know how relevant it is. I don't know if like how important is it to have the machines as often as they do out there? Is it too much of a change? Like there's a lot of different ways you could take this conversation. But it was the athletes were fucked up in the back. Like that's one thing that was funny about it is like none of them are going to admit it publicly, but like a lot of people were talking about it and they're like, no, I know it's too much, like that sort of thing. But
yeah,
again, context.
I mean, like
is important.
The first 3 workouts, and like you don't have to go far before you see workout 4, and it's like 300 feet of dumbbell overhead walking lunge with a 100/70 pound dumbbell. Event 5, like finishing with the Echo bike. Okay, like it's lower body, but I mean, yeah, I mean, my immediate thought when I kind of looked at the sheet that you gave with all the programming, just easy right there, is the smallest sets of any individual movement is like the 15 and 9 in the dumbbell thruster. Everything else is, and I feel like this is historically how it, I'm basing this off of mostly like empirical memory of watching the old Froning in the Barn videos of like a day in the life of Rich Froning training. And it's like like every single one of these workouts screams like muscle overload, or there's a massive muscle overload component to each workout. And that is typically how I remember seeing a lot of the programming that Rich would write for himself. It's massive sets of big sets.
It's also
of
the
leg
workouts he would
lift
win at the
times,
CrossFit Games.
GHDs, handstand walking, right, for sure. And it's like every programmer has their own bias, whether, you know, conscious or subconscious, but like that is a fucking kick in the dick from a programming
yeah, they were.
And it's like
you could tell.
You have to wonder, it's like okay, I mean, it's a kick in the nuts for everybody, but if you are a mayhem athlete, like we can talk at length about, you know, conflict of interest of having the primary the major, arguably the largest programming or, you know, training camp in the CrossFit space right now, programming and having so many of their own athletes competing. It's like conflict, maybe not, but it's like I'm still curious.
I believe only one of their athletes qualified.
Okay, so maybe
and
that answers that question.
He's a fucking monster. The thing that was funny was it smaller athletes. So Colton, Austin Hatfield, and Fee all qualified, and I think people are just so used to it's going to be, Jason and Dallin and, people of that size.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see how that shook out. Because you look at this and there's a little bit of push and pull. Like, I thought the smaller athletes would struggle more with the get-overs. Hell no. They look like fucking spider monkeys out there. It was crazy. Yeah. It was crazy watching them go over the box the way that they did and then just go straight into the squats.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an accurate statement or not. I think previously there was a time where the size of the athlete, ideal athlete size is that 5'10", 195 to 190, 200 pound male, equivalent. I don't know exactly what the equivalent female would be, but now we're starting to see it is, as long as the programming, and even if the programming doesn't appear to be super well balanced, I think there are spaces in workouts where the push and the balance of big versus small athlete kind of evens itself out. The machine component, I think previously we always thought smaller athletes are better off running, bigger athletes are better off on machines, but it's well,
big athletes are good at running.
Now big athletes can they can stride longer, so it's and they're fit enough that carrying around 220 pounds of muscle, I have fucking 150 of those pounds are in the legs that are carrying this body around. So it's interesting to see there's there is a wider spread of big versus small athletes competing and at the highest level. As far as who wins, I'd be curious to, we haven't done that like in a while as far as like who wins the CrossFit games. Is there a specific
Sure.
body type or proportion? But yeah, to go back to the original kind of the programming note, it's just like, it's a very clear bias. And again, doesn't seem like it paid off as far as like mayhem athletes just taking the crown. Looked like the fittest people took it, but it does beg the question of like who's, the same questions we had when sanctionals was a thing. It's like, who's auditing the programming? How are we like, what's the assessment of workouts that do meet like maybe the short, medium, long criteria? But it's like, man, sets of 20 burpee get-overs, 40 feed bag squats, 30 snatches, 5 legless rope climbs, 50 GHDs, 100-foot handstand walk, 30 bar muscle-ups. Like, all of these workouts have, by our definition, is like they're almost all muscle overload workouts, where it's just like your localized muscular stamina is more of a factor than your fitness level. And just kind of begs the question of how do we standardize programming while giving programmers a little bit of leeway, and CrossFit clearly wants to only be partially involved in this entire process. I don't even know what that looks like. So it's a really interesting question, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, as a programmer, it's like, why why is that volume of those movements and honestly, for me, it's not even like a squatting thing. It's just like the lower half is being torched. The devil's advocate here is, this was quite a fucking showcase, dude.
Yeah.
Like, the athletes handled this way better than you think they would have.
Sure.
And they were talking about in the back, like, how they felt, but then seeing how event 3 and 4 went for certain athletes is mind-blowing. So like they were able to, there's no question of whether this programming was like, they just decided to go fucking full seal fit on people and try to like murder them. Like, they didn't, even though it might look like that. Which again does allow like the layperson to see how far they truly are away. Because like, again, if these were chopped up and they were a bit gassier, a bit more cardio, then like things would change for sure.
Well, yeah.
So it was like, it didn't look as muscle overloady as you'd think in execution.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy.
Yeah. I think
like,
that's sick, because that just speaks to the fitness level of the athletes doing this. But
wild.
What is kind of wild is like, if that is becoming the case, we've like, I think the open is really kind of the last bastion of like, here's where literally everybody can play. It used to be like some of the games workouts were, and in semifinals workouts, like, oh, you could do that at your affiliate, and it would be appropriate. It might even be appropriate for your affiliate athletes to do. It's just going to take them longer. But like, there's not a single one of these workouts that I would like, except for like the off day where it's like, hey guys, like, here's the wow factor at the affiliate level. Like, not one of these workouts is like appropriate for the average everyday person. They'd have to be like seriously scaled back. And the reason I think that's significant is that like, as the sport and the top end athletes get fitter and fitter, it drags the sport further and further away from the majority of CrossFitters, and puts it further on an island than I would argue it already is. And so like, not having a test where it's like, not a single one of my affiliate, you could do event 1, you could do 120, 100-pound squats. You're not going to walk for the rest of the week, but like, you could do it. You do Murph.
Sure.
But from like, and it was funny because I saw an article that said Rich, what would Rich do if he was the CEO? Like, someone in Morning Chalk Up or someone asked him, and he was like, well, I'd, try to get like, re-link like the competitive side of the sport with the affiliates, like try to rebuild that bridge that doesn't really exist right now. And not to just like randomly take programming from the Mayhem Classic and say like, oh, you're not doing that. It's like that wasn't the intention, but it's like these 5 events are just like, this is very clearly not the sport that it was 5 years ago for athletes at the semifinal, regional, sanctional, whatever level you want to, whatever level it is now.
No, I mean, there's at this point 60-ish men and women on Earth that are just so much fucking fitter than like anyone has. That's the one shining thing that has made it through the like absurd amount of turmoil that the sport itself and the community at large has faced, is the progression is still just wild to watch. Like absolutely crazy.
You feel like that's a overall thing, or I feel like my opinion is that the progression is predominantly isolated to like the very upper end of that. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean.
See people at the yeah.
Well, and that's how it's a group representation of what Rich did and then what Matt did and then Tia, because we were still doing, no matter what, we were doing 95-pound thrusters. There was no other weight of thruster in 2010, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you see this fucking video of Rich doing 115 thrusters, 135 thrusters, 155 thrusters. And it's like, you gonna fucking catch that guy? He's doing 1.5 times the amount of weight you're doing in the same workout in a similar time domain. Like, and then it's like, you know, you had the like Matt Chans and Chris Spielers who were like, 1 workout a day, fuck you. And it's like, I mean, good luck, I guess. Like, you know, I'm sure you can go hard enough to make it seem like 1.5 workouts, but he did 6. So like, that's not going to help you. I just think it's a larger representation enough of the programmers and the people have caught up to the idea of how to put this whole puzzle together. But it's not appropriate for very many people. Yeah. Like the barrier to entry is so fucking high. Yeah.
Yeah. For kind of the longevity of the sport side, it's like you have to wonder how once people are doing something that is so unattainable, but like I can't even replicate. That's the nice part about the Open. It's like I can do the same workout as Colton and take twice as long to do it, but have it still be appropriate for me. And I can look at that and be like, how the fuck is someone capable of that? Like like 30 snatches at 225 is like the best case scenario for me takes 30 days. Like one 225 snatch a day would be for 30 consecutive days would be a fucking win. But it's like you can't the affiliate level, the layman, it's like this, it's no longer relatable.
That workout time is 43,200 minutes, in case anyone was wondering.
Nice. Okay. Fuck. I bet I could PR the shit out of that with a good month of only snatching.
Right. Yep. Yeah. One good segue here into, if we even care to cover some of the fucking online semifinals drama, is, oh no, I lost my segue. What was my segue? Right. I don't have it. Oh, you fucking talked about the review. gap. The gap, just the idea of the, you know, this person's over here and these 60 people that could even do these workouts are over here. I think one of the best ways they could do it is by getting rid of quarterfinals and introducing something called the Community Cup that no one understands or cares about, and ask the public to program it, because clearly they don't think it's a big deal. I think that would be one of the best ways to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Get rid of quarterfinals, alienate most of the community.
Yeah.
Do that.
And then
congratulations.
Choose not to promote the thing that they're not going to program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. I honestly feel like they're trolling at this point. I feel like they're trolling a little bit. And they can't be. There's like I feel like they wouldn't want to sabotage their own thing, but like between the fucking typos and like, hey, just get a fucking GPS device and you'll be fine running 800s. And then apparently there's drama that I don't really know too much about with the age group judging. I know you have a little bit of insight into that at least.
Yeah, I don't think it's much. Go on.
That's all I got.
No,
just
Yeah.
I'm just feeling kind of eh.
Yeah, the
If I didn't
I
have
was
my
reading.
people, my athletes, I would have fucked off a while ago. Like I'm pretty frustrated with CrossFit, the company, not the methodology,
Yeah,
not necessarily even the sport, but the
I've
company is
I
like,
mean, I've been saying it for years, like, what's the mission? Like, what are you doing? Is it a health? Is it the CrossFit Games? Is it grandma and grandpa? Was it us doing the at home workouts where somebody gets up and down from a chair? Is it CrossFit Health? Is it MetFix? Is it just the methodology? Like, where you going? What you doing? You got High Rocks banging down the door of the fitness world. You got F45. God help us. But I mean, it's like there's something to be said about like the you can have an excellent product and no ability to sell or market it, and then it fucking goes in one ear and out the other. And I think like we believe in the methodology, but yeah, CrossFit continues to pull out a 9 millimeter and point it straight at their foot and pull the trigger at a regular interval with regular rest periods. So I don't know what the fuck.
yeah, I mean, the best thing that we can think to do is provide Misfit Affiliate, GPP, Hatchet, and MFT and
Yeah, I'll
make
fuck you up with
content
that. I'll
and
make you fit as shit over
uh-huh.
here.
Like as long as there is a sustainable amount of humans that are interested in doing that, we'll keep doing our thing.
Well, the
But
fucking
it's
birth
just I
rates
don't.
are going down too, so we might be bingo on those pretty soon too.
Oh no. Yeah, and it's tough too because the people that can afford the program are the kind of people that aren't having kids. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Yep.
That
All right.
fucking night pretty quickly.
It did. It felt like it should have though. It
Yeah,
feels
that
like
was
the right mood to have for the
yeah.
topic. Um, all right, we're gonna end this on a good note here. So again, Misfit Affiliate Cortez phase begins Monday, May 12th. You can get a 2-week free trial, Sugar Wad, Stream Fit, or Push Press. Just click the sign up now button on teammisfit.com. Off-season block 2 gets started on Monday, May 26th. You can find that in the link in bio on Instagram or misfitathletics.com. And I guess we just say the GPP program is alive and well because there are no phases and there are no cycles. And we're doing something with horizons and trajectories here. Do we have any final thoughts on a hodgepodge of an episode?
I think Rory can take it at Quail Hollow at the next major. So I'm just saying
There
that
it
he's
is.
won it before. The course is kind of built for him. I'm on the Rory train for the next 6-7 months here. In case
I
everybody
usually
was
agree with
doing
Hunter on about everything, but I cannot get on the Rory train. I just don't like the guy. Wasn't his
You just
mistress
waited.
at
You
what?
waited one
Yeah,
hour and 23
I
minutes and 3 seconds to fucking say that.
I
You
was trying to be
goddamn
a good
fool.
person and just like wait and just not say anything, but you brought it back up, and I
Why
just
don't you like Rory? You get now explain yourself. This podcast will not end until I'm
no,
challenged.
we'll lend it. I'm a Scotty fan and I'm a Max Homa fan. I think Rory is a little soft, but I'm not taking away from his greatness. My comments are not about his
All
skill.
right.
It's just as a man, like it's I don't know. I don't vibe.
We're gonna have to
I
restart
I kind of I don't
the
know. I kind
final
of land
thoughts.
on
Restart
Yeah,
the
I kind of
final
land
thoughts.
in the middle a little bit on this topic because, like, part of his crusty exterior was created by people running their mouth about him. And then there's the whole, like, when we were kids, it was cool that Michael Jordan was a prick. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like that
yeah.
kind of thing. But there's, like,
Yeah.
it takes the right, I think maybe because he tries to turn it on and off sometimes, like that sort of thing. I can't even fathom. I was going to use a word that I probably shouldn't use on YouTube. How crusty I would be as a human being if I had to listen to other people run their fucking yap about me, like it's embarrassing that you're only the second best person in the entire world. That's something.
So embarrassing that you have 4 majors and you just need one more to.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I have like my youth was very much like you choose your team, you choose your guy, you choose your sport, even down to like my family's from Northern Maine. So you have to choose whether you're like a Chevy or a Ford guy. Like I just grew up where like there's fucking lines you don't cross. But then you get older and you start coaching and you start seeing these things. And like, dare I say, kind of fascinated by Aaron Judge. Like younger me would have pulled out that 9mm and shot me in the foot if I said that I was fascinated by that. So I don't know. Both ideas kind of live in my head. I'm not like a big fan of his. He doesn't do it for me. Like, yeah. But him accomplishing what he did and overcoming that thing just puts another like story and tool in my bag, which I can be thankful for, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my fitness is improving. My strength is improving. I'm going to be a real happy camper when my back and face don't hurt for like a day. Yeah. So I'd say if we're going for fitter, stronger, healthier feels a little off at the moment. So there's probably some couch stretch in my future, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
Do we do it?
Yeah.
MisfitAthletics.com for your individual programming needs. TeamMisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. We will see you next week.
Later.